This is Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, and this is Logic Pro X class, and we're looking at how to do the extra credit portion of the previous assignment on the sampler. And good, it hasn't been done yet in this version of the assignment. So here's what this sounds like right now when I play. And of course, that's a mixture of the envelope on the filter and the LFO on the pitch that comes in after the filter has reached the sustain level that's on the filter. And of course, that's also after being flanged and verbed over here.
Professor, can you
So,
share your screen? Is it possible?
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. You're doing a good job here getting me on task. So let me share my screen. And you should have it now. Do you have it now?
Yes, I have
Okay.
it.
Okay, great. So it's really very simple to make this, assuming you've got this far, it's very simple to make it mod wheel controllable. All we do is go to this entry in the mod matrix, and here we want to make it be by way of the mod wheel. And now there's two settings here. There's the setting that it will have if the mod wheel is all the way down, and then we want the setting to be about 60% roughly for if the mod wheel is all the way up. So now when the mod wheel is all the way down, then I play, it sounds like this. But as I push the mod wheel up, you hear it just getting a little brighter and a little louder. So the idea is you might play a pad and then use the mod wheel to create effects with it. And that up and down you hear a volume, and the filter is just me driving it with the mod wheel. So that's basically it. And that was the extra credit part of the assignment. Okay, let's move on to our class here. We have many things to do today. So I'm going here. So I hope you did watch the video that I asked you to watch before class, because it will clarify some of why we're doing what we're doing in today's class. But let me just say that the main point of this is this whole way of making a template this way is to facilitate the production process that you saw me using in that other video where I created 8 bars of big band music in what would have taken 15 or 20 minutes if I didn't talk so much. But I was trying to explain a little bit about what I was doing. So here are the problems, and so I'm going to come back here for a moment. If I had if my composition process was to play first the alto sax part and alto sax 1 and then alto sax 2 and then tenor sax 1 and so forth, it would be very slow for one thing, and it would require me also to be able to visualize and think about what each individual player is doing while I'm entering the parts for any one player to make sure that they all made sense. So even if I'm in the score, and here I'm going to open a score that just has all of this in it for right now. Even if I was, let's close that. Try again. Okay, and I'll get out of score page view for right now. And as you can see, this is what's left from that previous assignment that I gave you to do. And I'm going to view instrument names so that you can see what's what. You can see that in order to compose into this, I would have to be able to think about every line separately. Wonder why those all say trumpet master instead of trumpet 1 through 4. Excuse me while I go and fix that. I think that I just made some mistake there. Okay. Trumpet 1. There. Okay, now they're renumbered. So you can see the difficulty involved here if I'm trying to visualize what does third trombone do when I play this chord for 4 trombones, or what does second tenor sax do when I'm playing this chord for 5 saxophones. It's very difficult to think about that. Then there's another issue, and that is that very often when people are sequencing, and I'm going to sort of layer my windows a little bit so that you can kind of see things. Very often when people are sequencing, they'll use ensemble sounds so that when they play a unison, it sounds like a unison. So by that I mean, they'll, instead of having 4, let's say 4 separate solo trumpet tracks, they'll be working with a trumpet track that has as an ensemble sound, a sound that sounds like several trumpets, maybe 3 trumpets in one track, instead of 4 tracks of solo trumpets. And so what happens then is if they have, in order to make 4 separate trumpet parts, they do eventually have to have 4 separate trumpet tracks, each with its own region. But if each of them is playing with that trumpet ensemble sound, meaning 3 trumpets on this track, 3 trumpets on that track, and so forth, then this can end up sounding like a 4-note trumpet chord being played by 12 trumpets, which is just not a realistic sound, and it gives you a really distorted idea of what the weight of what you've done is. Another thing that goes south with that approach is then if you want to have a unison section, and this is where if you have trumpet 1, 2, 3, and 4 all playing the very same line, and if they all have the same trumpet ensemble sound loaded, now it sounds literally 4 times as loud when you have 4 trumpets as it does when you have 1 trumpet. And the reason that happens is because it's the same identical waveform in all 4 trumpets. So the amplitudes are simply multiplied by the number of regions playing the identical waveform. And so this approach solves that by having 4 separate solo tracks, because now when there's a unison, as you heard in the video that I asked you to watch, as you could hear, the unisons were not instantly 4 times as loud as the one player. They were maybe twice as loud, but not 4 times as loud. And this is the way it actually is in musical reality, which is to say that 2 trumpets are not twice as loud as 1 trumpet. 4 trumpets playing in unison are not 4 times as loud as 1 trumpet. They are maybe twice as loud as 1 trumpet, but their waveforms interfere with each other so that when one is driving the air pressure up at one instant, another one is driving the air pressure down at the same instant. And so they make that lovely, complicated unison sound that we like so much, but it is not 4 times as loud because you have 4 times the players. Some of you have sung in choirs, and you know that 10 singers are not 10 times as loud as 1 solo singer. And you know that 2 singers are not twice as loud as 1 singer. But if you have identical waveforms installed in 4 different tracks, and then you put a unison passage that all 4 tracks play in order to create parts for 4 players, it will literally be 4 times as loud when the unison passage comes around. And you don't want that. So this workflow that I illustrated in the video that I asked you to watch was meant to show what can happen if you have a way to play chorded parts the way you think of the chords, and you saw me doing that in the video, and at the same time have those chorded parts get distributed and played through separate parts, separate players. And in that video, you saw me show you this window with a lot of complicated looking stuff down below the mixer that allowed that to happen. And that's what we're going to create today. So this will be a little bit of a slog. I apologize for that. There's no easy way to do this, and there's no shortcut. You just have to understand what's going on. So we're going to start working from this file, and what your job is going to be to do your assignment for this week. And if you've looked ahead, you see there's only 1 assignment for this week. Your assignment will be to do for the trumpets and the trombones what I'm going to do for the saxes in class today. But before we start that, I'm going to load that other file just so that you can see what the general process looks like. So let me open that file that I used to make that. Here we go. So this is the file that resulted from me making the video. I know it's kind of sounds reversed. Usually you think of videos that are made from files, but in this case, this is the logic file that I created in the video that I asked you to watch. And I'm just taking you for a quick review. I'm going to play it really quickly. It's 8 bars long. Okay, so again, this was that random chord progression. Watch the video for details. Let's look at the environment window here, and I'm going to the mixer. And it is all of this machinery down here that makes it possible for me to do what you saw me do in the video, which is to say, play 4 or 5 note chords that are meant to be played by individual players, 1 note for each player, and yet have the convenience of playing it as a 4 or 5 note chord, and then still easily split it out so that as this plays, even though here this is a single track, that is a single track, this is a single track, this is all the saxes, all the trumpets, all the trombones. So these are single tracks that have these notes in them, and yet when it plays, you'll see the faders popping here for all those players. So that is what is made possible by this machinery. It allows me to keep all the notes that all the saxes are playing right now in a single region. And yet, when I play it back, have it played back by 4 separate solo sounds, each of which is a different sound. So that when there's a unison, it sounds like a unison. It doesn't sound like one super loud thing. And when I play a chord, I can have it distributed so that the notes are being split up in real time. And let me explain how this is working just in a very general way, and then we're going to go back to the other file and create it from scratch so that you can see what's going on. So this is an instrument that I'm circling here that was created on the new menu by doing new MIDI instrument. That instrument is, well, I need to get to a track window here. That instrument is right here. It is actually installed in the track window, in the arrange or main window. And here is a region called Woodwind Poly. This is that region right here. That's why you can see that it's highlighted, because it's selected right now. So this sax woodwind poly track is playing through this instrument. The notes that are in that region are then sent to this instrument. They leave that instrument and they go to this piece of machinery right here, and we're going to make it today. And what this machinery does is it copies mod wheel events from channel 1 to all 5 MIDI channels 1 through 5. So that when I move the mod wheel on my keyboard, do you see all those 5 faders moving? Each of these represents mod wheel events on channel 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I am moving my mod wheel right now, but they're all moving, indicating that this device is successfully copying all that mod wheel data that I'm generating on channel 1 and moving it to all 5 of these channels. In fact, if I was to select a monitor here and wire it in, where did it go? Nathaniel, where did you hide my monitor? I know you did. Here it is. You'll notice that I have made these devices for the strings in this particular template, and I've also made them for all the orchestral woodwinds. But so this is my working template that you're looking at right now, but we're going to make something like it. So in just a minute. I don't know why they insist on creating these devices off in space somewhere instead of where you're at. Okay, so here's the monitor, and just so you can see what's happening, I'm going to catch an arrow here and cable into the monitor. So now listen, or I say listen, but look. I'm going to zero that out. My mod wheel is all the way down, and now as I move it a little bit, do you see it's generating mod wheel data on all 5 channels based on my current position of my mod wheel? That's what's going on here. And then, and I'm going to just put that monitor down here for right now. And then the data is leaving that device that copies mod wheel data to all 5 MIDI channels and is moving it into this thing called a channel splitter. And I did ask you to watch a video about a channel splitter today also. It's one of the YouTube videos that I linked in the class preparation stuff. And so what this channel splitter does is it takes MIDI data on channel 1 and sends it to this fader, with this channel strip, which is called woodwind 1, and that's where I have my alto sax 1. And then channel 2, as you can see, is going here to channel 2. In fact, just to kind of see this, I'm going to pick the channel 2, the woodwind 2 channel strip, and then there is an option here for me to go to the previous cable. I don't do this very often, so I'm a little slow doing it, but it's here somewhere. Here it is, select cable origin. You see that? Option O. So when I do that, it went clear back to here. Well, that's not really helping us, is it? Well, it's just hard for me to trace it. So just for you to see how this works, I'm just going to disconnect it for a minute, just so you can see the connections happen. Okay, so here's a channel splitter that's not wired to anything. And now I'm going to grab that cable and connect it to woodwind 1, grab the channel 2, connect it to woodwind 2, grab the channel 3, connect to woodwind 3, grab channel 4, connect to woodwind 4, and grab channel 5 and connect to woodwind 5. So that's how the channel splitter works. It's actually taking MIDI data that is leaving this object on many different channels. And I say many channels because each of these notes, here I'm going to explode polyphony, these are the 4 saxes. So each of these notes is on a different channel. Do you see that these notes are on channel 1, these notes are on channel 2, these notes are on channel 3, these are on 4, and so on. And I'm going to unexplode the polyphony there.
Professor Shackleton,
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure, like, as you were wiring them up in the environment window, like as you were saying, it was going to like 1, then it went to Vox 3 or 2, and then it went to. It kind of looks like it goes to 1. Is that?
It just looks like it to your eye, but the way the cable is drawn and the way the connection actually looks is this wire from 1 is this one, and it goes all the way over here and then connects up there. So when you're connecting it, here, I'll just remove it for a moment. This may look as though 2 is connecting to 1, but it's not. Here, let me just grab this fader out of the way so you can see. Do you see that 2 is actually going to 2? It's just, so to speak, going through the physical territory of the window that is covered up by the number 1 fader, so it looks like it's connecting to 1, but it is not. It's actually connecting to 2 up here.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just a little bit confused. All right.
I understand why you would be. It is visually confusing the way they've implemented this. But the way you can be certain things are going where you want is right now I'm dragging the cable from channel splitter MIDI channel number 1, and I'm just going to be sure that gets highlighted. And when I let go, look what happens to the physical appearance of the cable. So now it looks like it's touching this, right? But it's not. It's actually going to this. In fact, if I move this out of the way, you can see up here it's connected. So that's just how they programmed their user interface. They didn't like us very much, and they wanted to confuse us to create job security for people like me to get to explain things. So that was a joke, right? You all got that was a joke, I hope. sort of a joke. I do make a living, among other things, explaining these things. It's amazing how many people are willing to pay to have this explained to them. So I used to do pretty well making trips to Malibu, to people's mansions who had more money than comprehension of what they were doing, and they would fill their studio full of stuff they didn't know how to use, and then I would teach them how to use it. So you can make money if you pull this together and get skilled at it. In any case, let's keep dancing. So you see what's going to happen here then. When I play a chord back in sax poly, and then I split the MIDI channels out into the polyphonic voices, then the channel 1 notes go through here and go to that. The channel 2 notes go through here and go to that. The channel 3 notes go through here and go to that. And the mod wheel moves that I make in this track get copied to all 5 channels and also sent through the splitter to the appropriate destination here in the woodwinds. So in your setup, these would be labeled alto sax 1, alto sax 2, tenor sax 1, tenor sax 2, and so forth. So this is what we're going to make. I apologize for the lengthy introduction, but if you don't understand what the reason for this is, then it's just so much gobbledygook when I start babbling about do this and do that. Also, there's some things here that don't have to be here for it to work. So this, for example, is a little fader that just generates mod wheel messages. When I select it, you can see over here that all it does is send modulation wheel, you know, MIDI controller number 1, in other words. So this is just here for me to make sure that my machinery is working there. And this is also here just to give me a visual reference that, yes, what I want to be happening is happening. This is not required for the functioning. In fact, when I didn't have the monitor connected here yet, this data didn't go anywhere. You see there's no output? It's just here for reference. So what we're going to build today is going to be at least this and that and that and the wiring. We may get around to doing these things as well. We'll see how fast it goes. But I just want to be sure it's all clear. And then finally, there's this object up here called filter notes. And what it does is if you should want to play back this track but not play any of the notes in it, only the mod wheel data in it, then you can run this MIDI instrument through filter notes. And filter notes removes the notes but sends everything else to the channel splitter and to the appropriate instruments. So I'll have to explain later why you might want to do that, but that's what it does. Okay, so minimum today is here to here to here to all these. And then if we can do it, we'll do these others as well. And part of your assignment that's due next Tuesday is you're going to take this machinery that you're going to create inside your own template, and I'm going to give you some help with that. But you're going to basically take this machinery and then copy it so that you can do it with trumpets and trombones in the template that you're building. It's probably time now for me to cheer you up with this fact. You are not going to have to make all of this stuff for your eventual template. I'm going to just give you my template eventually. Just going to hand it to you. But you won't really understand it and understand how to modify it and understand how to use it until you make your own, partly. Once you've made some of this, then you will be able to use it. And you saw how fast I worked. And that was with me talking. Honestly, I can write 8 bars of big band in about 15 minutes if I'm not talking, if I'm just doing the job. So imagine what that means I can do. It means I can write a big band chart that's 100 measures long in about 4 hours, maybe 5 at the outside. Now that's just to get all the notes in so that at the end of those 4 or 5 hours, it will look, it'll look like that thing looked in the condensed score view. Then it'll take me another couple of hours to split it out to all the parts and edit the parts and do the page layout and all that stuff, all the nuts and bolts you have to do. But nevertheless, it means that I can write a whole big band chart in a day one day. About as many hours as you're supposed to spend composing, well, actually fewer hours than you're supposed to spend composing if you're taking in a week. If you're taking 2 units of applied composition, you should be spending 12 hours a week composing. So that speed is made possible by 2 things. One, of course, is musical proficiency, but the other one is the tool. The tool is what allows the musical proficiency to express itself and get there quickly. So this is another reason why I really encourage music majors to develop keyboard chops, composer chops at the keyboard. I hope you watched the video. If you did you see that I didn't very often just play a whole, like, 4 bars at a time? Once in a while I did, but mostly I played little bits at a time. I stopped and thought. You heard me thinking. You could hear me going, let me see, maybe I'll do this. I mean, if you watch the video, you actually saw how the sausage is made. That was what I do as I work. And so I hope you will go and watch the video if you didn't already. It'll help you understand why we're doing all this. Okay, so away we go. I'm going to go back to that other file, and we're going to leap off and get the job done here. So I'm going here now. And away we go. So we're going to do this in stages, and basically, what's going to seem kind of funny to you, but we're going to do the first part of it and the last part of it first, and then we're going to do the middle part. So away we go. And you can watch this. You'll just have to watch it for now, I suppose. And then you're going to be trying to do something like this on your own file, except that mostly you're going to be copying the machinery we create today and then copying it into your own environment so that it affects your trumpets and trombones the way this is going to affect the saxes. And just to make this a little bit easier to visualize right now, let me show you something that I sometimes do just to make my life a little bit easier visually. I'm just going to grab all these channel strips and move them over a little bit. And now I'm going to grab everything from trombone 1 to the right and move it over a little more. And now I'm going to grab everything from trumpet 1 to the right and move it over a little bit more. And now I'm going to grab everything from alto sax 1 to the right and move it over a little bit more. And do you see that already my window is a lot less confusing to look at than it was? I inadvertently drugged some of these down. I didn't mean to do that, so I'm going to put them back up where they were. By the way, do you notice that I have my master tracks drug a little bit lower so that when I come and look at this window, just at a glance, I can see these are the submasters. Here's the submaster for the sax bus pair, the submaster for the trumpet bus pair, and so forth. You don't have to do that, but it does make it easier to visualize. And now it's much easier for me to not just get totally bewildered by labels. I can just kind of see, well, here's 5 saxes, 4 trumpets, 4 bones. Just a little bit easier for me. You don't have to do any of what I just did. It just makes it visually easier for me to function when I do it. Okay, I'm going to the new menu, and I'm going to make a new MIDI instrument. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to name it Sax Poly. And it's called Sax Poly because I'm going to put those parts for all the saxes in the track that is assigned to this instrument in a bit. And then I'm going to the channel splitter, which is right here. So on the new menu, I'm getting a channel splitter. And I'm just going to put it right here for right now. And I'm going to cable Sax Poly to the channel splitter. And here, remember what you say. It doesn't matter if you say remove or don't remove, especially. I usually say remove, but it doesn't really matter. Just don't say cancel or nothing will happen. So the reason we're saying this question is being asked is because this is a MIDI instrument that actually at this moment is outputting to all of the MIDI output ports that I might have connected to my computer. It's meant to play external MIDI instruments, but we're not using it for that, so we may as well remove the port setting that already exists. So now you can see it says port off. So now it's no longer sending MIDI data out, it's just sending it, when I say it's not sending MIDI data out of the computer anymore, it's just sending it to the channel splitter. And now I'm going to cable channel 1 to alto sax 1, channel 2 to alto sax 2, and this is exactly what you'll be doing when you copy this machinery over here. You'll be rewiring it just this way. Channel 3 goes to tenor sax 1, channel 4 goes to tenor sax 2, channel 5 goes to bari sax 1. Are we good? And then I'm now going to be inserting right here. Well, actually, let's get this wired into a track before we insert anything here. So before we can use this to do even the most basic thing, I'm going to return to the track window. I'm going to just close these score windows for right now. I don't need them at this moment. Okay, so before we can use this, we have to install it out here. So I'm just going to select vocal here, just this track, and say plus. I have to make a track. Sort of the weird thing is it doesn't matter what kind of track it is because I'm going to change it anyway. I'm going to assign it to that instrument that I just made in the environment. But I'll just make it be a software instrument track. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll make it be an external MIDI or USB device. I'll do that. Okay, so I just made a track. It's got this funny name. You can ignore it for now. And now I'm going to hold the control key while I click on the track name and reassign track. I'm going to mixer. And look, here is sax poly. You see, that's the device we just made in the environment. It wasn't there before, but it is now. So when I go to the mixer layer of the environment, there is sax poly, and I'm selecting it. So right now, when I play in sax poly, do you see that it's actually playing through alto sax 1? Now let's look at how that looks in the environment. And we don't really want to see that. Okay, so when I play right now, I'm still in the sax poly track, remember? But look, when I play, there it is. So you can see that the notes are leaving sax poly on channel 1, and then they're going to the channel splitter, and then leaving this channel splitter on channel 1 and going here to woodwind 1. So that's what's happening right now with the data flow. Okay, now I want to put a region in sax poly. So I'm just going to get the pencil tool out here. I already had a command-click pencil tool, so I'll put that there. I'm going to bar 100 and planting another one. And now I'm going to select, when I select the track, it selects all the regions in the track, and Control M merges them, and I now have a single long region. I'm going to go in the score window just for a moment now. Here is the sax poly region. We'll go back to the environment in a moment, but let's just set this up very quickly. I'm going to piano 1 plus 2, 3 plus 4. I'm going to duplicate it. And now I'm going to edit the copy. It's critical that you make a copy and edit the copy so that you still have access to piano 1 plus 2, 3 plus 4 in its unedited form if you want it. And now I'm going to leave this as bass and treble clef just like it is. I'm just going to rename this /sax 1 plus 2 / 3 plus 4. Okay. And other than that, I'm going to leave this all alone for right now. I'm just going to leave it just like it is. Oh, except I'm going to have ties be up and tuplets be up and down. This ends up making a better looking display if you do these things. Down, down. Okay. And now I can close this. And now I can play straight into this window. I'm going to do this in, I really hate automatic zoom. Do you hate automatic zoom as much as I hate automatic zoom? Everybody hold up your hand in front of your microphone if you hate automatic zoom as much as I do. Yes. Would you please go up here to provide Logic Pro feedback and ask Logic development people to stop making automatic zoom be automatic. Let it be something that only happens if you go up here and click. Beg them for that for me, please. Okay, so watch. I'm just going to play now. Oh, that was funny. It still has all the notes from the other thing that I had you do, right? So it still has all the notes from the other assignment. So can I show you how to delete all the notes from your entire project all in one go? Here we go. I'm just going up here to MIDI transform. I'm going to change the mode to delete selected events. Oh, it was already done. Apparently I did this sometime. So I've already changed this to delete selected events. Status is note. And I'm going to say select only. And it just found, oh, I have to select all the regions first. So here. There, selected all the regions. Now select only. And it found all those notes. And I'm going to say operate only. And now all the notes are gone. So now it won't be playing stuff from that other little mini project I had you do. And now I'm going to record into, well, I guess I don't have a score window open right now. There we go. So now I'm going to record into here. And away we go. Okay, so there it is. And now, right now, when it plays out of, you see it's all coming out of this first sax track. But now I'm going to select all these notes and do Option V, which you're familiar with. It's in the functions, note events, right here. Set MIDI channel to voice number. I call it voices to channels. And so it's channel 1 now. Here. Channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. And so now when it plays here, oops, something is not happening quite the way it should. C sax poly, it has to be set to be MIDI channel all. See that? It was set to be MIDI channel 1 when it was first created. And because of that, every bit of MIDI data leaving it was being automatically set to channel 1 before leaving this MIDI instrument. So I had to set it instead so that it sends MIDI channel all. And that means that the MIDI channel of the data leaving this instrument is not changed before it gets sent to the channel splitter. So now when I play this, you can hear that, and you can see that it got played on 4 separate tracks. Are we seeing that? That's a critical point to understanding what's going on with this combination of an instrument that sends on all the channels, and then in this window you're able to assign MIDI channels to different notes in the chord, controlling then, as they go through the channel splitter, which individual instrument plays each individual note in the chord. That's the critical thing here. Questions about that and how that's working before we go forward? I'm looking at all of you on my screen down here. When you see me doing this, it means I'm looking at you.
Professor Shackleton,
Yeah.
what's the key command to making them all go to their separate MIDI channels immediately?
You bet. Here, let me show you. I'm going to put all these back on MIDI channel 1. By the way, I did that by selecting them, clicking and holding on the asterisk for MIDI channel and holding Control Shift and then dragging while I was dragging on the asterisk. So I got them to channel 1. And that key command is in the event right here. In the menu it says Set MIDI channel to voice number, Option V. So you can just select the notes and do Option V. And shazam, there it is. You saw me doing that a bunch of times on that video. Okay, so with that in mind then, now we're going to take the next step. If I want to have each of these instruments playing in a way that lets me use the mod wheel to affect their level, then I need to put some machinery in here that captures the single mod wheel on channel 1 event I'm creating at my keyboard as I play, and then turns it into mod wheel events on all 5 MIDI channels. So that's the next thing we're going to make. Okay, and before we do that, just to make this clearer to our ears, I need to assign each of these tracks to an instrumental sound that is affected by the mod wheel. So here's something that's just going to help us carry that out. So I'm going here to alto sax 1, and I'm going to go to the articulation ID for studio horns, and I'm going to say studio alto sax 1. And here, studio horns, studio alto sax 2, and so forth. I'm going to do it a couple more times. Studio tenor sax 1, and you'll be doing this for the other instruments. And
Sorry, Dr. Shackleton, why are you doing this again?
I'm doing this so that, well, for two reasons. It needs to be done in your template, but also having this done will make it easier for you to see the articulations that I'm working with, because I'm actually going to assign them to notes, and it'll make some sense to you then. And I'm going to sax poly. And notice that sax poly is just that virtual instrument, right? This sax poly track is assigned to this MIDI instrument that we created in the environment. And so I'm also going to assign an articulation set to sax poly. And it may seem strange, but I'm actually going to assign studio alto sax 2. And let me show you why. Studio alto sax 1 has all those articulations. So count them up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 articulations. Now let's go to alto sax 2 and take a look. Not as many. Are you seeing it? So it turns out that alto sax 1 and tenor sax 1 have longer lists of articulation possibilities than alto sax 2 and tenor sax 2. So that means that when I'm putting articulations on notes in the sax poly track, I don't want to put articulations here that alto sax 1, pardon me, that alto sax 2 and tenor sax 2 cannot respond to. So I need to use the minimum set of articulations that all the saxes can respond to. So that's why I'm putting studio alto sax 2 as the articulation IDs that are available in sax poly. And now I know that when I'm in this window, the articulations I see here are available to all the saxes. Now once I have moved the notes into the individual sax tracks, I still at that point now could go in and assign an articulation that only alto 1 or tenor 1 can do, just for those tracks only. But these are the articulations that are available for all the saxes. So those are the ones I'm using for this sax poly track for right now. There is another way to work here, but I don't want to get into it right now. This is the simplest approach. Okay, so now I need to show you something else about how these instruments work. So I'm going to the alto sax track, and I'm just going to open it up. Open up the plugin. And I want you to hear that even though we have the dynamic controller set to be modulation, in other words, the mod wheel, and we have the combination of velocity and controller used for this, it turns out that sustain is pretty much the only articulation here. There might be another one, but I really don't think so. Maybe trill. I don't know. I think sustain is the only articulation you'll be using a lot where the mod wheel actually does anything. So here I'm going to play a note. I'm going to play a middle C, and now I'll move the mod wheel. So you can hear that the mod wheel is moving the volume up and down. You can see up here my mod wheel values moving up and down as I played. But now when I set this to be, let's say, expressive medium, which is kind of the default articulation for a lot of these in this big band setting, if I hit middle C with the mod wheel all the way down and then move the mod wheel up, nothing at all happens. And if I hit the mod wheel all the way up but use the gentlest velocity I can find, the mod wheel is still not doing anything. You can see the mod wheel numbers up there spinning, but nothing's happening. So the mod wheel is mostly only going to affect sustain as the articulation. It might affect one of these, you can check sometime, but I think it mostly just affects sustain because all of these have pre-cut envelopes that it just always does. So because they have pre-made envelopes, velocity is the only thing that really controls how they execute. Whereas sustain does not have a pre-made envelope, and so you can control it with the mod wheel. All right? So for that reason, just to make it easy to understand what's going on here, I'm going to set this to be sustain right now. And I'm also going to go into the sax poly notation now and set all of these notes to be sustain, so that we'll be able to hear whether our mod wheel machinery is working as we create it. And I need to go fast here. Okay, so I'm going now back to here. By the way, I'm going to do a quick save. So this is going to be save as, and this is going to be V2, meaning not done yet. Okay. And now let's get to the environment and get about this. So here we go. I'm going now to the new menu, Transformer. I'm going to drag it over here, and I'm going to connect sax poly to the transformer. And I'm going to double click here and say what we want you to do here is to grab any controller event that is a mod wheel event. So grab any mod wheel event that comes in and force it to be on channel 1. So what this one is doing is it's making sure that we do get a channel 1 event, because it's possible, isn't it, that my keyboard is itself set to some other channel. What if my keyboard is set to channel 11 or something? Then that means when I generate mod wheel events, they'll be on channel 11. So what I'm doing is forcing the first mod wheel event that leaves this transformer to be on channel 1. So I'm capturing all controller number 1, which is mod wheel, and making its MIDI channel be channel 1. And I'm letting everything else go through. That's the logic up here. So that's that one. And now I'm going to make a copy of that transformer because I'm too lazy to enter all that stuff again. And I'm going to cable from here to here. And now we're going to that one, and we're saying now grab all the controller events that are on channel 1 and make them be channel 2. But up here we're going to say copy a matching event and apply the operation. So here's what's going to happen. It's going to make a copy of any mod wheel event on channel 1. It's going to make a copy of it. And then it's going to change the copy's MIDI channel to channel 2 and send them both out the data stream. So here I'm going to get myself a monitor, and we can see what's going on during each stage of this. So when I connect up here right now and I move the mod wheel, well, it would help if I was in the sax poly track back here, and I'm not. I have to be in the sax poly track. Do you see that? If I'm not in the sax poly track, then the things that I do to check what's going on in the environment aren't doing anything because I'm sending no data out the sax poly track. So now I'm going to move my mod wheel, and there you can see I'm getting data on channels 1 and channel 2. Do you see it? Okay. And now we're going to make a copy of this transformer. So I'm holding the Option key and dragging. So Option drag makes the copy. And now I'm going to have this one cable to that one. And just to make this a little bit easier to eyeball, I'm going to make some space so you can see kind of what's connected to what. And now I'm going to have this transformer is now outputting to the monitor. And I'm going to do that. So it's, well, there. Nope. Now I can see. That's what I couldn't see visually. There. So now I have the data leaving the second transformer we made and going to the third one. And let's have the third one grab all the data that's on all the mod wheel data on channel 2 and turn it into channel 3. Now we could just keep grabbing channel 1 and turning it into these other channels, but I just want you to kind of see how this is working. Okay? So it would work either way, because we're going to make a copy of the event and then turn the copy to channel 3. So really it's going to function regardless of this, because we're going to be receiving controller events on channel 1 and controller events on channel 2 into this transformer. So either will function. But I'll just kind of keep building it up this way. And let's move this monitor over here for right now. And now when I move the mod wheel, you can see events on channels 1, 2, and 3 that all have the same value. Do you see it happening? You see how useful the monitor is as you're wiring things up to see what you're doing in pieces, so that if you're messing up at any stage of it, you can fix it. And now I'm going to do another one. That was an option drag. Now I'm going to wire this one to that one. And now I'm going into this one and saying, now capture mod wheel events on channel 3 and turn them to channel 4. And move the mod wheel, and you can see notes on, or I should say mod wheel events on channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And one more copy. And we have to cable it again. And it's already cabled to the monitor. And now we're going to capture mod wheel events on channel 4 and turn them into channel 5. Notice in each case we're making a copy before we apply the operation. So these 4 all make copies. This is the only one that didn't make a copy. You'll notice it just applied it directly. It just grabbed any mod wheel event and put it on channel 1. But each of these makes a copy and then adjusts the MIDI channel of the copy. So now when I move the mod wheel, oops, I forgot to do something here, apparently. Yes, I didn't actually edit this one. So now this one is going to grab mod wheel events on channel 4 and send them out on channel 5. So now when I move the mod wheel, I can't see enough here to do it. So I'm going to move this. There we go. Something is not working the way I want it to here. So as I move the mod wheel, now I'm back to only seeing 1, 2, and 3. It's funny, I was seeing 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what has happened? I'm going to disconnect that one for a moment and reconnect this one. Okay, moving the mod wheel, and now I only have 1, 2, and 3. Oh, I see what happened. I edited the wrong one. You remember before that this one set it to channel 1. This one captures 1 and sets it to 2. This one captures 2 and sets it to 3. This one is supposed to capture 3 and set it to 4. And it used to, but when I made the copy, you remember, I edited the wrong one. So now I'm going to select this and go back here, grab channel 3 and put it on channel 4. And now this one's going to here. And this is the one that should grab channel 4 and put it on channel 5. Okay. And try again. I'm not having a good day, am I? Let's look one more time. I'm going to start. You know what I'm doing? I'm failing to close the window. So what you have to do is close the window after you make the edit. So this is the one that should turn 3 to 4. And now I have to open this one separately and have it turn 4 to 5. Now let's try. And there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what are the things that I hope you learn from watching me stumble around as I do this? And by the way, something else, there are several things you learn from this, but one of them is I don't do this every day. Why don't I do it every day? Because it's in my template. I don't have to do it every day. I get to just use it. So do you know how often I do this? Any guesses? Once per year when I'm teaching this class is how often I do this. So you're seeing me do something now that last time I did it was, well, about last October would be the last time I did this, okay? But there are some other things that you learn from this. And so one of them is when you're editing a transformer, be sure you're editing the one you think you are. So just because you made a copy doesn't mean you're now looking at the copy up here. So close the one you just edited and then double click on the one you want to edit. Okay, that was what I kept forgetting to do, which was to close the transformer window of the one I just edited and then reopen it for the one that I now want to edit. Okay, so now let's name all these objects just to make this easy.
Professor?
Yes.
So the transformer depends on the channel strip, right? Let's say we have 5 instruments in that thing, so we need to have 5 transformer. Is that what is it supposed
Yes,
to
the
be?
reason why we have 5 of these transformers is because we want to be able to move the mod wheel on our keyboard and have it send mod wheel data to all 5 of these instruments at once. And they are connected through the channel splitter for channels 1 through 5. So we need to be creating 5 channels worth of mod wheel data that we're then going to connect to the channel splitter. So that's why we're doing it that way. Okay, I'm going to name these. So I've selected all 5 of them, and I'm going to come up here, and this is just going to be MW1. And look what it does. It just nicely names them for me in order. So this is the one that outputs mod wheel on 1, this outputs mod wheel on 2, mod wheel on 3, mod wheel on 4, mod wheel on 5. And now that I have them all selected, I'm going to neaten it up a little bit. It doesn't really matter about how it all works, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And now I'm going to select all of that, now that I know it's working, and I'm going to go to macro. You made a macro before, remember? So we're going to make a macro of this, and now we're going to make the macro small and insert it. So here's now sax poly is going to the macro, and now we're just going to make sure it's still working as a macro. And it is. There's channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with the same values. So we're happy about that. And now we're going to connect the macro straight to the channel splitter. Okay, now we're going to see if it's all working. So remember that chord that I played on beat 2 of bar 2? And remember that all those notes got set to be sustain. Do you recall that? So now, right after they play, I'm just going to jiggle the mod wheel around some. And just for you to see what the mod wheel is doing, I'm going to do that right now also. So notice that you can, every time you take an output from one of these devices in the environment, it creates a new arrow for you to get a new output. It just keeps creating more outputs. So I have one signal path going through the channel splitter and another one going to the monitor and then going nowhere. So this is just for me to see the data that I'm sending through the channel splitter. So here we go. So could you hear the volume going up and down, and did you see the data going up and down here as I did it? Now let's make it a little bit more visual than just this alphanumeric display. So we're going to set this aside for a moment. And now let's get some faders and make a little fader bank. So I'm going here to fader, and I'm just going to choose vertical 2, I guess. It'll do. And I'm dragging it over here. And I'm going to tell this fader that I want it to output mod wheel data. So you see, this is the output side. No, I'm sorry, this is the input side. Up here's the output side. And I want it to output mod wheel data, and I want it to take mod wheel data as its input. Okay? And on channel 1. So it's going to output MIDI data, mod wheel data on channel 1, and it's going to be controlled by mod wheel data on channel 1. Now I'm going to make a copy of it. Just make it as close as I can here. I want it even closer if I can. I can't make it that close. And I'm going to cable this to that. And now this one, I want to take as its input mod wheel data on channel 1, but I want it to output mod wheel data on channel 2. Well, I'm trying. So this one takes mod wheel data on channel 1 and outputs mod wheel data on channel 1. This one takes mod wheel data on channel 1 as its input, but outputs mod wheel data on channel 2. Are we seeing that? And now we're going to copy it and cable. And this one, we want to, I'll just keep having it take mod wheel data on channel 1, but we want it to output data on channel 3. And this one, we want to take mod wheel data on channel 1 and output to channel 4. And I have to cable it. And finally, this one, I'm going to cable it. We want to output data on channel 5. Okay, now when I move this fader, well, they should all be moving. Why aren't they? I guess I have to do the logic in a little different way. So I do have to make it all match. So I have to go here and say 2. And I have to go here and say 3. Oops. That's supposed to be outputting on 4. And this one should be outputting, I just reversed them, should be outputting on 4 and taking, okay, so it's taking 4 as its input. So now let's review. This one takes input on 1 and outputs 1. This one takes input on 1 and outputs 2. This one takes input on 2 and outputs 3. This one takes input on 3 and outputs 4. And finally, this one takes input on 4 and outputs 5. And now when I move this one, they all move. Are we seeing that? So now, in order to make this a discrete little thing, I'm going to first of all name it. So this is mod wheel 1. And now I'm going to get them as close physically as I can make them be. I guess, you know what, I'm just going to name them just by number. Okay. And now I want them as close as they can get. These could be physically taller if you want them to be, but there's a reason not to do it. You're never going to actually use these things to grab and move them. They're just here to give you a visual display. That's all they're for. And now I'm going to select all of those, and you guessed it, make a macro. And now I'm going to have, instead of going outputting to that monitor over there, I'm just going here. And now when I move my mod wheel, I'm now playing the mod wheel on my keyboard. And look at that. So now I have graphic feedback right away about what's going on with the mod wheel in that region or that track. And then finally, I'm going to make one more fader. And I'll just make it be vertical too also. And it's just going to produce mod wheel data on channel 1. So I just need to go to 1. Okay, so this one is inputting and outputting data on channel 1. And now I'm going to have it connect over here. And now I can use this, and you can see. So again, these are not involved in the actual processing of the data that's going from the track through the mod wheel multiplier to the channel splitter to the other tracks. These are here, this set of faders and that fader are here purely for visual display to help you have confidence that things are working the way they should. So that in case you've done something weird, you have some feedback here. You have a way to check and see what's up. So you can see we've now made most of the machinery that we had there. The only thing we don't have now is a filter notes option, and I'm not going to bother with it for right now. It's not something you'll probably use that much. There is a workflow that requires it, but there's an alternate workflow that doesn't require it. And so for right now, let's just not bother. And you can see I'm just trying to set this up so it's easy to read and like that. Okay. So I'm going to keep the monitor handy here, but I may not be using it for much from here on out. So now I have the ability to play the mod wheel into my track. So I'm going to go back to there. And I'm going to actually play the mod wheel in this track now. So here we go. Okay, and something just fell off my keyboard. That's good. And let me play that back. Okay, now what did that look like? Oops. I'm not doing well with my fingers today. Here we go. Here's what that looks like as it plays. Okay. So look at the control I have now. I can play chords on 5 parts. Now, there's one other thing that I should point out before I go much farther. Here we go. Let's get into this window. And I'm going to unzoom. Actually, I don't need to unzoom for right now. That polyphonic staff style that I had you make for the saxes, or that I made here for the saxes, only displays 4 notes. Are we seeing that? But there are actually 5 saxes. If you recall from watching the video, I had 4 saxes in one track, and then I had a bari sax part. That's because the bari sax is often rhythmically independent of the other 4, but also because it just plays very low. And it's kind of confusing to see 5 saxes in 2 staves here. But there might occasionally be a situation where you aren't going to be too confused with that. So I'm going to make a duplicate of sax 1 plus 2, 3 plus 4. I'm going to edit the duplicate. I'm going to staff styles. And I'm going to rename this one sax 1 plus 2 plus 3 slash 4 plus 5. Any guesses about how I'm going to edit this one? Anybody want to make a guess based on the name?
Top 3 voices in the treble and bottom 2 in the bass.
That's exactly right. So I'm going to put 3 voices on the top and 1 at the bottom. So I'm just going to hit the plus button here for voice. And it made it down here. Oh, I must have hit it twice. I got overly excited there. So I need to select this one and get rid of that and try again. There, I need to be up in that one. Now I'm going to hit the plus button and hopefully it creates a voice up above. There it did. Good. So you have to have selected a voice in the staff where you want to be adding one. Do you see that? So now I'm going to make those be channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, and channel 5. Okay. And we'll have the middle voice here. We'll just leave an automatic, I guess. So, yeah. And we want the lower voice here, of course, to be down on all points. Okay. All right. So now look what our chord looks like. Now it's got 3 notes up here and 1 here and it's got a rest here for the 5th voice. But now I'm going to play some more stuff in here. Let's see what happens when I play. I think you'll find this interesting. Okay. Of course, those all played initially out of alto sax 1. In fact, as it plays, you see they're all playing out of alto sax 1 right now. But there's something else that happened, and that is, do you see they're all expressive medium? So if I want them to be sustained, I need to make them be sustained. So I'm just going to select them all and be sustained for right now. So expressive medium is the default articulation you get when you first play something, which is not bad. It's a very useful, it's the single most useful articulation. And you can play short notes with it and long notes with it. But if you don't want the dynamic envelope of expressive medium, then you switch it to sustain. And then control the dynamic envelope with the mod wheel. And so now that I've got all those notes selected, I'm going to next do Shift O. That's to make sure that I didn't get an overlap of some kind. I doubt if I did, but just in case. So I got rid of any overlaps that might exist between these notes. And now I'm going to hit Option V, and you can see that they split channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just as we set it up in the staff style. And now I'm going back here, and when I play it, okay, and the Barry sax is kind of puny here. Oh, I know what's going on here. I think I didn't assign all the sounds yet. I may not have assigned the sounds up here in the horns, so that could be some of what's going on. I could hardly hear it. Wonder why that is. I see it. I'm starting to wonder. Look at that, it's not even. Oh, I must not have assigned the sound for Barry sax. Let's go in here. It thinks it's a trumpet. Okay, so baritone sax. That's going to help, right? Let's look at the others really quick here just to see what's up. Yep, I didn't assign these sounds yet. I was just in a hurry to get this rigged up. Okay, so now let's play it back. So you can hear that's a very different sound. Now, that's just with the mod wheel all the way up right now. So now I'm going to play a little mod wheel. So I'm going to perform the mod wheel into that region. So here we go, because I couldn't play 5-note chords and play the mod wheel, right? So here we go. So I tried to play it a little bit subtly. I'm a subtle person, as I know you all know. So here we go. So I could have done a better job, but you get the idea. That I'm performing the mod wheel now and creating a dynamic envelope that is affecting 5 solo instruments in 5 separate tracks with a single performance. And that's basically the magic sauce that allows me to play the way I think about the music into a single track, and yet have the privilege of playing it back through multiple tracks, each of which is set to a solo instrument. And then when I play a unison, as you saw in the video, I'm going to put one in here. So let's have a unison. I'll put one here, bar 7. I don't even know what this is being set to quantize to or anything about this. Let's see. It's set to 16. So, okay, fine. And I clammed, but I'm going to get rid of that clam there. Okay, so there's what I played. And I'd probably want that to be a G sharp, so I'll fix that now. And if I wanted this to all be smooth and legato, I would just select it all and do Shift L. And if I leave it at expressive medium, then the mod wheel is not going to have any effect. Remember that? So it's just velocity that's going to affect it. Right now, I'm just going to turn the velocity down quite a lot. So I'm going to hold Control, Command, and Shift just to make all the notes get the same velocity. That's a fairly cheesy way to do it. Normally you would want to keep some velocity variances here. It just sounds more human, but I'm just lazy right now. So Control Command Shift, and now they're all the very same velocity. Here's how it sounds at this moment. If I would like some of that to be sustain, then I could set some of those notes to be a sustain articulation and others to be this expressive medium articulation. So you can just use your ear and work with that. Do understand that sustain will be affected both by velocity and the mod wheel if, just a moment, if in the setup for each instrument you have chosen velocity and controller. So I've opened up the studio horns instrument from right here, right? And if you have set dynamics, you've checked it, that means dynamics via continuous controller, and here you've picked the controller, the mod wheel. The dynamic controller mode is velocity and controller, so that means that even when I play sustain with a sustain articulation, I'm still going to get a mixture of velocity and the controller, controlling the volume. Okay, so let's go back then, and now I'm going to select all these notes. I'm going to do copy, Command C. I've just copied them, and now I'm going to do Option Command V 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's now 5 notes right there. Do you see it? When I select this way, I've got 5 notes selected. You see it over here? So now I'm just going to select the whole thing and Option V. This is crazy looking, right? What do you do with this? So, of course, I wouldn't be likely to have a bari sax playing up in here, so I'm going to actually take second tenor and the bari sax. I just selected them and dropped them an octave. That's helped some. This might not be a bad time to create a little more space. So I'm going to just unzoom for a moment and create a little more space between the staves. Remember, nobody's ever going to read this as a part. This is just something you're looking at while you work. So you set it up in a way that you are finding convenient. So now when this plays back, listen to it. And you can hear it's got that unison sound, but it is by no means 5 times louder than one part was. It's probably twice as loud or something in that category, but it's a much more complex sound, and more to the point is it sounds like 5 separate players playing in unison. Now, what if I'd like to capture I'd like to capture first tenor and drop it an octave to be with second tenor. Right now, first tenor's up here, but it's hard to select it individually. Do you see that? So there's this wonderful key command called explode polyphony. It's right here, Option P, and you see it? So I'm going to press Option P. Voila! Here is second tenor. First tenor. I can grab it, drop it an octave, and unexplode. Option P explodes and unexplodes. It does both things. So now this is first and second alto up here, and down here is first tenor. And then down here is second tenor and bari. And again, yes, I know the collision doesn't look good to you. Remember, nobody ever reads this but you. So if it confuses you too much, make more space so you're not confused. It's not a big deal. This isn't going to affect how anybody's part looks. Notice I am not editing stem directions directly here, but rather I'm using the staff style to determine stem directions. The reason I'm doing it that way is because I want the notes, when they're eventually copied to their individual parts, to do the automatically correct stem direction assignment then. Where if I've done a bunch of local stem direction edits just to try to make this display look happier to my eye, then that may not be the stem direction it should be when it's transposed and copied to its individual part. So it's better to leave the stem direction on automatic. And by that I mean what happens if you haven't edited it. So that's what makes it automatic. If you have not directly edited the stems here, then the stems are taking their default setting for up or down. And the default setting for up and down is what is determined by the staff style. So when you eventually copy these to 5 individual parts, in those parts, their staff styles will all be on auto. So they'll all get the correct stem direction for their transposition and place in the staff in that part. So do not, I repeat, do not edit stem directions when you're in these poly tracks. If you don't like what you see, try to fix it up here by changing the defaults just for that staff style. But don't go and edit individual stems just to make it look prettier in the condensed score view that no one but you will ever read. Okay? Is that making sense to you? All right, so this is basically the deal. And now here's what you'll be doing for your assignment. I'm going to leave this file in the, I'm going to get this out. I'm going to leave this file in the common file stream. There you go. And what you're going to do is copy that material. So you're going to select it and you're going to do Command C for copy. All right? And then you're going to go to your own file that you've been making, the one that you worked on for your assignment this week. And as part of doing this next assignment, you're going to copy this material out of the file that I'm going to save in the common file stream, right here, everything I have selected right there, and paste it into the environment of your file. So here's what that experience will look like when you do that. I'm going to cut it instead of copying it. Yes, yes. So it's not there, right? So this is what your file looks like right now. But you will have copied that material, and then you will open this event, copy that material out of this file in the common file stream. Then you're going to open your own file and go to the environment window in this view, and then do paste. So this is Command V. And the difference is that probably these channel splitter wirings will not automatically be correct. So you're probably going to have to go here and reconnect them. Connect 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, and 5 to 5. Do that carefully or none of this works right. And clearly I messed up 1 to 1 already. Here's 1, it should be going to that one. There. Yep, I goofed. Here's 2 to 2. 3 to 3, 4 to 4, and 5 to 5. All right. Don't drag anything off the sum. So here's the deal. With the channel splitter, the sum carries all the MIDI channels data that you didn't separately cable. So if you're putting 16 channels worth of data into a channel splitter, but you've peeled off some of the channels to individual outputs, then the sum carries everything else. So for most purposes, you just don't use the sum. Once in a while you can. Occasionally you may have a situation where you want to peel off only a single channel and take it to a certain destination and keep all the other channels going to some other place. So then you might use the sum. But generally, when you're using a channel splitter, you don't use the sum. There are not many applications for it, but it is there if you need it. So you could think of it subtractively. The sum carries everything you didn't specifically send to a unique destination. Okay? So that's what you'll do to do your assignment. And then the next thing you'll do is you will copy all this. I'm just going to Option drag it over to the trumpets. And now I have to wire it in again. So 1 to 1, and say don't connect. Remember, never say connect with this dialog or it will wire up everything in the world. So say don't connect. 2 to 2. Yeah. and 3 to 3, and 4 to 4. I'm visually struggling to see this here. 4 to 4. And you don't want anything coming out of 5. So notice that to get rid of a cable, just click on the arrow and it just folds back in on itself and you let go. So now you see I have trumpets 1, 2, 3, and 4 connected, and now I need to rename this to be trumpets poly. That makes sense to you? And while I'm at it, I should probably rename these channel splitters. So I'm going to make this be sax channel splitter, and I'm going to make this be trumpet channel splitter. And it just helps me not be so confused about what I'm doing. You don't need to rename these other devices. You can just leave them with the names they have. So remember what we had to do? We had to make a track for sax poly. Now we have to make one for trumpet poly. So I'm going back out here, and this should be looking more or less like the file you created for the bus pairs assignment that was due today. So notice I'm going to pick Barry sax track and then do plus. And I'm going to say go ahead and make an external out MIDI or USB device, but it doesn't really matter. You could even create an audio track. It wouldn't matter because you're going to replace it. In fact, just for laughs, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to create an audio track there because nobody's going to be using it. And now I'm going to click and hold, pardon me, I'm going to get the control key and then click and hold on that name, go to reassign track, mixer, and here's trumpet poly. And I have to do the same thing up here for the sax poly track. The reason it says no output is, recall that a moment ago I actually deleted the sax poly instrument with the cut command. So at that moment this track got assigned to no output. But I'm going to put it back to reassign track, mixer, sax poly. And you're going to do the same kind of operation for trombones. And then you're going to follow the rest of the instructions for this assignment. So this assignment then, that's due next Tuesday, says take the real-time MIDI processing objects we create in class, make copies of them for the saxes, the trombones, and the trumpets in your own template, the one you've been building. And then assign the poly instruments, and that's what you just saw me do. I assign poly instruments in the tracks for sax and trumpet. You're going to do it for trumpet and trombone. It will have been done for sax when I give you the file, this file. Actually, you're going to have to do it for sax as well, because remember, you're doing this in your own file. So you're just copying these objects out of my environment and inserting them into your own file. And then follow these instructions. These instructions are similar to the things that you already did for your rhythm section template. So do you recall your rhythm section template had separate score sets for each part, remember? And a separate staff style for each part, and a score set for the score, and all that. So these instructions are now to do something similar to this template that you're creating. So that when you're done, you should have a big band template that gives you this level of control over the workflow as illustrated in the video I asked you to watch before class today. And it's going to have separate score sets, separate parts, score sets for every part, the page already laid out in a rough way, a lot of things already done that let you just get off the ground. And we're out of time. So have a blessed day, and if you want, it might not be a horrible idea for you to try to start this assignment before Thursday so that you have some questions. You can ask them on Thursday. And I have some more material to present on Thursday to help you do all of this. But you could start doing the assignment so that you generate what questions you'll have about it before Thursday. And we'll make Thursday me giving you information you need to complete the rest of this assignment, although actually you've done most of this assignment already in other assignments. So now you're applying those same skills to this template that you're creating. Okay? Yes. Yes.
I have some question. So
Okay.
let's say for the
Okay,
mod view,
okay,
let's
just
say
a
if
moment,
you-
please. Just a moment.
Yeah.
So class is officially over because we're out of time. If you need to leave, you may. I'm still making a movie right now, so I'll put the answer to her question in the video if you need to leave and go on to something else. So you all have a great day.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye. Go ahead, Win.
Yeah, I was thinking, I have a question about, like, let's say if you have recorded some of the notes on the score, but then how do I add in the mod wheel? Like, how do I do the expression? Like, how you do? Like, do I press my mod wheel while I do the recording?
Yeah, well, you can play the mod wheel as you're playing the notes, or you can do it as an overdub. Today, you saw me, and you can watch the video again if you want. You saw me overdub mod wheel events. So remember, I played the notes first, and then I came back and played the mod wheel. So all I did
Yes.
was I just hit record while I was actually in the score window. Well, I guess I don't have one open right now. So I was actually in the score window looking at this sax polytrack, and I simply played the mod wheel after I played the notes. So recall that I played these notes first, and then I changed them all to the sustain articulation, and then I came back and played the mod wheel. I don't know if you recall that, but that's what I did.
Okay, and then you were talking about we can use our previous assignment as a template, right, to start with.
Yes.
Yes. Let's say if my assignment, my assignment, there's a lot of error, and if I start from there, wouldn't I get penalized because my assignment was not complete, was not done properly? Do you have like a proper template that, oh, okay, this is the template that I can follow up so I can use it instead of using my previous? Let's say if I've done a lot of mistake in the previous template.
Well, I'll be looking at your assignments. Excuse me. I'll be looking at your bus pairs assignment that you already did over the next, well, I'll probably look at them tomorrow.
Okay.
And so if there's a huge problem that would prevent you from succeeding, you'll find out in time to fix it.
Okay.
But keep in mind that at the end of all this, I'm going to actually give you a template that works in all these ways. So my point here is for you to go through the process of creating your own so that you understand it.
Yes, I understand. It's just that
yeah.
I just was worried that, oh,
Yeah.
what if I, like the previous assignment I've done, there was quite a lot of mistake. So that's why I was wondering if
Yeah.
you have to use the previous template, then
You'll have to
could
fix
I
it.
get- yeah.
You'll just have to fix it, that's all. So
Yeah,
if your
okay.
previous assignment has mistakes, I'll find them when I grade it, and then you'll have to fix them.
Okay.
But
because the-
when I evaluate how well you do this next assignment, I won't be re-evaluating the previous assignment work that you did. When I evaluate this next assignment, I'll only be looking at the new things in the new assignment. If your old assignment is done so poorly that you can't complete this, well, that's a different problem. But if you actually did make the 13 tracks for 5 saxes, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, and you made the bus pairs, the rest of it you can fix.
Okay. Okay.
As long as you have those tracks showing in your mixer. If you have these tracks showing in your mixer, you can do this next assignment correctly. As long as
Okay.
these are all there, you'll be able to do the assignment. And of course, what's left from your master rhythm. Remember, you were supposed to have done this assignment, adding the studio horns tracks. You were supposed to have done it by starting from a rhythm template that was already done.
Yes, I
Okay.
remember. Yes.
So as long as you have these tracks existing, then you can do this part of the assignment and get this all connected up, and then you can start creating all the staff styles and score sets and all that stuff that you have to make to get this template up and running.
Okay. I
Okay.
understand. Yeah,
All right.
I was worried just now, so that's why I wanted to ask how
Yeah.
was it. Yeah.
I will look at those assignments quickly.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.